a donor of our church, mother, mentor, and she's passionate about mentoring and creating disciples of teen and young adult women. Please welcome Ms. Lauren Salter. Our next young lady is another daughter of Carolina's ministry. She is an early childhood educator working in Prince George's County Public Schools. Please welcome Ms. Jasmine Mills. This next brother here, he really don't need a whole lot of introduction, so I'm just going to call him musician and my friend, Chris Leach. That's his wife, y'all. That's his wife. All right, next we have a brother that has been around in Carolina about as long as Carolina. Praise God. He really don't need no introduction either. He's a preacher and my brother, Minister Sherman Nelson. All right, the next young lady coming to the stage is the other half of this power couple. Ladies and gentlemen, mother, life coach, and entrepreneur, Sister Precious Nelson. Next, we have a senior at Potomac High School. Y'all know Mr. Tajay Ma, ladies and gentlemen. He's a senior, y'all. He's a senior. He's going to be ready to go to prom this year, I'm told. Come on. Next, we have another senior, I'm told, at Potomac High School. Come on, Sister Tamara Brown. Come on. I saw her prom dress today. It's appropriate. It's I guess on the way. We raised these kids right here. All right, and lastly, I want to introduce a special friend of mine. I went to middle school with this young lady, and somehow God saw fit to bring us back together in order to minister today together. It is my pleasure to welcome. Now, she gave me a lot of letters, y'all. Let me just read these letters. Licensed Master of Social Work, Clinical Juvenile Sex Offender Therapist, Trauma Certified Therapist, Licensed Substance Abuse Therapist, and for forensic psychology. Come on up here with my y'all know
take him out there.
Come on, we can't have the C2 without the shepherd in the house. Can we all I'll pass the heat to the good. All right, so y'all know how we do this. We got a panel who don't mind asking questions and a pastor who doesn't mind answering them. All right, so we bless God for this conversation again. I just want to let you know before we get started, our intercessory prayer warriors are in the house today, and they are ready and available. Whatever you feel, please be okay to feel that. We are not here to judge you. We're trying to rescue and release people today. All right, we're not playing with this. This is not about Robert Kelly. This is about release and redemption. All right, so if you need to leave, please do. If there are any children here who are under 12, feel free to release them. But without further ado, Surviving R. Kelly.
This is between R. Kelly and Robert. R. Kelly's this fun, laughing, loving guy. But Robert is the devil.
R. Kelly is at the top of the charts, but he may be in for a fall. He was arrested today on 21 counts of child pornography.
Kelly is accused of videotaping himself having sex with an underage girl.
Taking advantage of minors will not be tolerated.
Jurors found him not guilty on all charges.
Robert has said all along he'd be cleared of these terrible charges.
Shame on you! Shame on you! Milk R. Kelly! Milk R. Kelly!
Kelly has denied accusations that he's holding women against their will in a sex cult.
Daddy said he loved you so much. I've never introduced her to him. I should have never introduced my family.
He's the puppet master.
It was very scary because I knew at that moment I had a secret.
Sparkle is alleged to have received significant payment.
I didn't take the money because I can't be bought. He ain't a monster by himself. It took some help.
I'm just ready to get the hell out of there.
Black women don't get the same recognition as our white counterparts. And I wish that would change.
A grown man, 50-something years old. That's not acceptable, no way. No way.
I want to reiterate that if there are children who are under the age of 12, we do have other alternatives for them with worship. In addition to me reiterating that, I'd like to also say this. If there are any persons in here who feel that what we're about to discuss is causing emotional trauma to you, we do not want you to remain in this place. But we have intercessors who are on staff, prayer warriors, clinical psychologist and counselor and social worker who is available, that they might be able to minister to you now. Because we do not want our discussion to cause you the kind of pain that will bring trauma to your life. Having said that, Robert Sylvester Kelly, AKA R. Kelly, an R&B songwriter, producer, former professional basketball player, recently became the subject of a documentary series entitled Surviving R. Kelly. In his 6-part documentary that was recently aired by 2.1 million viewers on the Lifetime channel, R. Kelly's accusers sought to bring to light the physical, the psychological, and the sexual abuse that he was seemingly perpetrating upon black girls and women. The allegations that were being levied towards R. Kelly was that he used his power and his influence to control these young black girls while sexually and physically abusing them for his own self-gratification. Many of us have been asking, how could one person hurt so many and it go unnoticed for decades? Y'all, one of the common threads that leads many of the victims hanging there, that ties the narrative. One of the common threads that ties many of the victims' narratives together is the fact that all of them had dreams of having a career in the music industry. R. Kelly comes along, recognizes their ambition, capitalizes on it, seeking to control and abuse them as he dangles their dreams just out of their reach. In R. Kelly's 2012 memoir entitled Solar Coaster, he writes about being sexually abused as a child by an older woman who he referred to as a relative. In an interview with GQ magazine, R. Kelly said that the abuse went on from around 7 or 8 to 14 or 15 years of age, and it would occur every other day or week. Hence, the birth of a monster. Research says every perpetrator was once a victim of some form of abuse, child abuse, sexual abuse. Research also says that 85% of persons being abused was done by a family member or a close friend of the family. In addition, we have come to know that hurt people hurt people. Yes. Let me pause here for a moment and talk to the panel. I'm going to ask if you would keep your responses limited in time. But let me just ask, can circumstances like I've just described create a monster? Anybody on the panel?
If I may,
Sure.
Pastor?
Sure.
I definitely believe that circumstances can create monsters, right? Just like when you grow your child up in the ministry and in the church, we also create and we produce men and women of God. And one of the things that my pastor says is, you can only teach what you know, but then you reproduce who you are, right? In the Bible, in Genesis, when God created things, every fruit had its seed to replicate after itself. So R. Kelly reproduced what he was, what he became a product, what he was a product of, and that's what we do. We're either going to produce good fruit or we're going to produce rotten fruit.
So let me ask this question. Who's at fault, given what you just said? Is it the impressionable young women? Is it the parents? Is it the record label? Is it the persons who in fact infiltrated the hurt on R. Kelly? Or is R. Kelly at fault?
Yes. It's all of them. Because it's complex. R. Kelly, like you said, reproduced what was deposited in him. And I'm from Chicago. It was facilitated by a whole number of people. A record label, the record labels knew, but R. Kelly sold out shows. And so prophets override people all the time. It is the parents of these children who were negligent. Because if my daughter comes to me and says, I'd like a career in music, I'm gonna send her here to a musician I know, but at no point is she spending the night or is she going on tour unaccompanied in pursuit of a dream. So the young people who are victims, I say, are the least responsible. Because when we were 13, 14, and 15, we were bamboozled by a lot of simple things. This is an insidious plan that the enemy has spent thousands of years developing to make sure that you never realize that candy is bad candy for you until after you've ingested it. So I don't blame them as much, but I blame him because he could have gotten help and people have asked him to get help, but he doesn't want help. I blame the people who enabled him. I blame the record labels. I blame all of us. Because a Twitter rant about R. Kelly is different than tangible action about R. Kelly. I think that we're all complicit to a degree because we didn't just know. Now we're scrubbing our playlist, now we're scrubbing our Apple Music, but we didn't just know. It just got to a point when we saw this documentary, it just got to a tipping point.
Brevity is not his
I'm a son of Anthony Morris. I have a spirit of preachment on me. Got fruit at its own kind.
Well, I agree. And well said, baby, well said. I think that it starts even before he was R. Kelly, before he was a musician that we all know, because that kind of abuse doesn't happen for 7 years and adults around that child not say something. I blame the people who didn't say something, who didn't do something. Not just the adults in his household, but for those who have seen that special, his younger brother said something to him, but because it was happening to him, he said, no, you didn't see it, because they didn't know what to do with it. So they just kept it quiet. But how does an adult in that house not see something's different with their children? Or the teachers, or the people at church, or the neighbors on the street? You know, it's happened to adopted cousins of my own. And somebody saw something and said something, and that's how they became my adopted cousins. You don't just sit there for 7 years and let that happen.
You know, one thing I want to say is that before any type of abuse happens, there's always a season of a grooming process. And in that grooming process, there's a mental and emotional pattern of behaviors and systems of belief that are shifted and changed within the victimizer before any form of abuse happens. No one goes out on a first date and a man smacks a woman. He has created in her an ability to depend on him and demoralize her own value to enable him to feel comfortable enough to do it and for her to become vulnerable enough to feel like she deserved it. So when the grooming process takes place when you're 5, 6, and 7 years old, that becomes your normal. So for me, if I know that that's not normal, I'm going to say something. But why would I say something if this is how I grow up and this is what is normal in my household? This is what I recognize as my day-to-day interaction. And the research is correct. As a juvenile sex offender, I joined that field because I got tired of working with the victims. You get tired of hearing the sob story, and I'm like, if this is the sob story, let me talk to the people who are abusing you so we can start to do the research to find out what does the abuse looks like before it happens, and how can we intervene on the forefront. And one of the recurring stories that you hear all the time is that there was some form of abuse that happened to these young men before they violated the young women. And they're not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, single moms do know, and this is no flight, no slight, or anything, but when you're tired, you don't want to think that way about your child. Nobody wants to think I gave birth to a child that is now abusing another child in my household. One of the biggest ministries that come out of doing social work and therapy to my client is number one, to the parent, and validating them as a parent and reminding them that they are not a failure because something happened on their watch. So the belief of denial is a powerful thing, and it runs rampant in our communities. And we also have to keep in mind when all of this was happening, about 20 years ago, we weren't talking about mental health. And mental health is not okay to be talked about in the black community. It is only recently that black people are like, yep, I'm about to go see my therapist, I got something to talk about. This whole mental health movement is brand new. So we have to remember, 20 years ago, we weren't allowed to say that because you were shunned, you were put away, and something was wrong with you. So we got to keep all of those things in mind, you know, when we're talking about.
Unfortunately, you all, this has been going on for years.
Yeah.
Been going on for years. This has been going on for years. But our society, unfortunately, has turned a blind eye and a deaf ear to the cries and the struggles of these young black women or persons who are being abused, period, whether they are young black women or our boys. Instead, y'all, with the girls, what they've done is they've called them fast-tail girls. Call them fast-tail girls for putting themselves in that position. Unfortunately, we have bought into the stereotype of African-American young girls being hypersexualized, as if non-black girls don't have the same kind of feelings. Unfortunately, you all, it is these kinds of stereotypes that have been long used to shame black young girls, black young boys who have suffered from the hands of sexual abuse while giving the perpetrators a free pass. I want to ask y'all something. If our girls are fast,
Right.
then what do you call the grown men who catch them?
Exactly.
So let me pose this question to the panel. What I want to know from you all is, should R. Kelly be given a pass because he himself had been abused?
No. I believe no. That is a strong no. Now that comes from experience of actually going through certain things in my own life. Because if everyone out here has been, let's say, let me give you an example. Right now, I really can't give you one. Well, in living terms, I'm gonna say if everyone was out here saying just because my mom slaps me, I'm gonna go slap you, or quote unquote, he's smoking cigarettes, so I'm gonna go smoke cigarettes. This is not a trait that you just pass on. Abuse is something that should be, that should just be given to everyone, because not everyone deserves the same thing that you've been given.
Okay.
And not everyone can handle what you get, because honestly, not everyone is built the same way you are. Now, psychologically, maybe he believes now, social media, honestly, I would say, to go back on that first question, social media and we the people can be to blame with this. Now, because of the eye that R. Kelly has on him, so much attention he has, we see what he has done. Now just think about it, let's get deep. Think about all the things that we don't see. All the things that are unnoticed, all the things that don't get news coverage, all the things that don't go on TV. Just think about that, all the lives that have been changed, or mentally changed, all the suicides, all of the breakdown. Y'all have to really understand that some people out here are actually still hurting, 40 years old, 30 years old, and they don't know how to deal with it.
So you're saying that he should not get a pass?
No, he shouldn't.
Good. Is there anybody on the panel who believes that he should get a pass based upon the abuse that he's incurred? Anybody?
I believe that he should be held accountable for his actions. I do believe that there should be some type of repercussions. I also believe before those repercussions are taken fully into place, he needs psychological help. There needs to be some type of mental evaluation to see where the breakdown is, what happened. I myself was molested as a child. I made a conscious decision. As a child, I didn't fully understand what was going on, but I made the decision that I would never inflict the same pain that was inflicted on me.
Wow. Wow.
Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
But no, I just think that I don't think that R. Kelly should be given a pass. I also don't, I don't think he should be given a pass, but I think it's interesting that most people gave him one anyway. You know what I mean? It's not like everybody, it's easy for us today, and I guess what I'm trying to say is I think it's unfortunate that it takes something like this, that we all knew was going on and accepted. We made jokes about it, we made comedy specials about it, we made songs about it, everybody knew. So today, it's easy to sit here and say, no, he don't get a pass. But for one reason or another, we still play his music. We still stepped in the name of love. We still did all of the things to give him a pass because it's easier to just passively go, nah, I ain't gonna go to his concert though, but I'll burn this playlist on Spotify. I won't buy his album, but I'll do this. We justify things for the sake of entertainment. So we all sit up here and in my opinion, rightfully so, say, no, you don't get a pass, but you don't get to where he is now without getting one.
Yeah, I would say I think that it's hard to give someone a pass who boldly stands out there and act like they don't need one. I heard in one interview he said, it's too late now. I'm handcuffed by my destiny. You should have got me a long time ago. So mentally, it's like, I'm good. I don't even want this pass. I don't even want help at this point. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing.
When you look at the definition of a narcissist and how it doesn't take much to feed a narcissist, narcissists don't even feel any type of remorse for their behavior. And they find a way to manipulate every situation and blame everybody else for their behavior. So you have a young man growing up who could not read, who could not write, who manipulated an entire school that allowed him to walk into his school, take these young women, had these men on his team who knew what he was doing. He manipulated them, and he's just is feeding this monster. You understand? So there was already a monster that was there. And in everything there's a seed. The seed is my thing, y'all. I'm telling you, everything is a seed. We're either gonna water it and grow a seed and nurture it, or we're gonna abort it before it comes. And he surrounded himself with people who continue to nurture it because what they wanted and their benefit was more than these victims. But it's the same thing as adultery, right? Nobody really feels remorse when they're engaging until the victim emerges. It's never real until you hear the other side of the story. It's never real. So now all of a sudden it's real because we see the tears, we see the outcome, and we hear the stories. That's just how we are as a society. We're a show-me society.
So I think there's an all-out war for our children. Yeah. You all agree?
Yes,
I think
I
there's an
definitely
all-out
believe
I think there's an all-out war for this future generation. And I think the enemy has always had a concerted effort to come against our children. And we need to fight to rescue our children. Yeah, I believe this war for our children started all the way back in the Garden of Eden. Genesis 1, God created heaven and earth. But he created all of mankind. When we get to chapter 2, we see this enemy coming on the scene with the intent of trying to pull people away from God. As Adam and Eve bought into that lie that Satan offered, it made God angry. And the Bible says that he cursed the serpent. He cursed that serpent, and he, in fact, at that point, is where we get all of this stuff concerning the battle for our children. This is what he says in Genesis 3:15. He says this, God tells the devil, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offsprings and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. In other words, you all, here's the Grandmama Cornbread version of that. He tells the devil there's going to be a war between he and the children of this generation, the children of that day. He tells them that they're going to crush your head. Our children are not going to be statistics or those who fall prey to the devil. He's going to crush your head. So here's what the devil said. The enemy said, I'm going to stop them before they get to me. Which is why Pharaoh decides to send out a decree to kill all of the baby boys. Because the enemy understood that he was up against children. And so he comes against the children. Now watch this. Not only with that, but then also Herod comes to the New Testament. He decides he's going to kill all of the baby boys. Watch this. Pharaoh heard a deliverer was coming. Herod heard the Savior was coming. And they both determined that they were going to kill the children. Y'all, it's the same fight where the enemy is coming against our children. And I say that we need to rescue our babies. So having said that, here's what I want to know. Y'all, who should take the responsibility? Teacher. Who should take the responsibility to rescue our children, Jasmine?
We all should. We all have to take responsibility. We all play a role in children's lives. I see it every day. I play a huge role in my students' lives every day. When I was growing up, I was not the perfect child. By all means, I was not the perfect child. I was very outspoken. I was all over the place. And it wasn't just my mom stepping in, it was my church stepping in, my family stepping in. Everybody played a role in making me a better person today. And if I didn't have that, I would probably be doing something I had no business doing, and I wouldn't remember anything that I was taught because I wouldn't have people in my corner. We all play a role with children. We all must step up.
So let me ask you all to do this. Watch this next clip, if you will. Watch this next clip.
I didn't start having to ask R. Kelly for permission to eat and stuff until he actually moved me in the house. So as a fly-in, it was normal life. You know, if I go to the mall, he'll say he goes some mall money, go shopping. You know, I pretty much let him know where I'm at. Hey, Dad, I just got here. Hey, Dad, I'm leaving here. I would let him know my whereabouts, but I never had to say, oh, Daddy, can I get something to eat? When I say rules, he really don't just tell you the rules, he puts you to a test. For instance, April 2015, I came to Chicago. I sat in a hotel for 2 days. Daddy, hey, I'm here. Where are you? No response. So that Saturday, he just out the blue, 10 o'clock in the morning, come to the studio. So I said, okay. When I got to the studio, I called him. I texted him, I said, I'm here. So he called me. Okay, my is going to come and open the Sprinter. So he comes and opens the sprinter and turns the sprinter on. So I'm sitting on the sprinter thinking he's about to come on the sprinter, about to go somewhere. Hours has passed by. I'm just on the phone talking to my friends, not realizing, and I have to use the restroom. So I text him and say, Dad, I have to use the restroom. He never responded. Remind you, I got to the studio at about 10:30, 11 a.m. His did not come and get me till 8 p.m. that night and said, Mr. Kelly said, come inside the studio.
Now here's the problem, you all. Whenever a predator is seeking to slide in, I don't want you all to get bogged down in the sexuality piece, though that's a major issue. But the bigger issue is about control. It's about control. It's about him having the ability to control. Sex happens to be a byproduct of that.
Yeah.
But it starts with the whole idea of seeking to control, creating the atmosphere, making parents feel comfortable. And they do it all on the backs of money. Because outside of us building a monster, we also become blinded by the money, which allows us to, in fact, make adjustments, compromises with this whole situation. So here's what I want to know from you all. Let me just ask this. Was R. Kelly exempt from consequences that rightly he should have been charged with? But was he exempt from the consequences due to the money and or culture?
I'm going to say it was a little bit of both.
Okay.
And also race. The money, because the money gave him power, and it was putting money in lots of people's pockets. Namely, you're talking about record labels, you're talking about big fish. But the culture has been one where we might see something, but we're not going to say something. And one of the things that came up, seeing these specials, even at work, my coworkers were saying, well, you know, we all know that nobody really cares about a little black girl. So even if you did tell, what's going to happen? You had some parents calling the police, nothing's going to happen. There's no empirical proof. We're not going to go on a witch hunt here. He makes too many people money, and it's not hurting anybody that matters.
So would you agree then, any one of you all, that money can be a gift and or curse? Let me show you something with you all. In 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 9 through 10, it says this. It says, but people who long to be rich fall into temptation and are trapped by many foolish and harmful desires that plunge them into ruin and destruction. That's what the Bible says. For the love of money, watch this, is the root of all kinds of what? Evil. Y'all say it with me. Come on, what? Evil. And some people craving money have wandered from the true faith and pierced themselves with many sorrows. Now I want y'all to get this, because what Paul does for us here in this passage is Paul outlines a three-step process in this text. I want you to take it back with you. A three-pronged process. Just from those two verses that you see there. He shows us the desire for money. But he also shows us the deception of money with the destruction of money that it brings as a result of us yielding to that desire and not having the proper attitude. So here's what I believe, you all. I believe money is a dangerous thing if it's not checked with the right attitude. So I got to ask y'all this. Paul, you alluded to this. I want to ask, why do y'all think then R. Kelly's record soars, or his record sales soared after the airing of Surviving R. Kelly?
I think it's because above all else, we want to be entertained. we will look to the side for a lot of things, but if we can be entertained, I mean, even on social media, we talk about other people validating black girls. It took us as a collective 1 week to start discrediting and poking holes in every victim. Every victim that came out, we was trying to find her. We got mad at Andrea Kelly because she was supporting her husband. So all of a sudden, she don't matter no more because she's supporting her husband. We don't understand the manipulation of the mind that happens for something like this to take place. So we talk a lot about supporting our black girls and validating who we are. But if we're honest, I think we're talking to white folks that don't look like us. But if we turn that mirror on us, we can say, listen, there was a whole lot of black girls on this documentary that we all systematically took time to devalue in the week after the R. Kelly proceeding. We did that.
So let me ask you this then. Do you all think that R. Kelly's behavior is about power, pain, or pleasure?
Say pleasure.
Oh, no, it's a combination.
Combination.
It's a combination.
Come on, clinical psychologists.
I would say it's a combination because the Bible teaches us that we all suffer from either the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye, or the pride of life. And so if you begin to break those things down, we're either suffering for the idea of wanting pleasure or avoiding pain or a combination of the two. Either way, it's all about a lack of crucifixion of our flesh, right? So in that process, instead of addressing my pain, I'm going to overly seek pleasure because that becomes my dopamine that then now quiets the pain on the inside that I've not been able to label and put words to, right? So instead of being able to express and articulate and say, I am hurting because of this, because I don't have that ability to do that, I mask it by overindulging in pleasure because now I don't have to address pain. Does that make sense? So anything that you don't address, anything that you don't check becomes out of control, and then it begins to check you, and then it begins to control you. That's how addictions are born. Whether your addiction is to food, sex, money, whatever, it is born out of an inability to check whatever that area or that issue is that we will not confront or face. And I want to go back to something you said, Paul, when you talked about how we went back and discredited the stories of the women. That's because we discredit ourselves. And if many of us are true, we are those women. That is us. And because I can't face me, I'm going to attack you for having the courage to face you. So the real answer to your question, Pastor, when you said, how do we save our children, is we have to first be honest with ourselves. And we have to first rescue ourselves, right? When you get on an airplane, before you get ready to take off, it says what? Put your own mask on. Take care of yourself, and then you can take care of the next person. So when we stop lying, and when we recognize our own abuse, and stop being afraid to say, I was abused. I love my mom and I love my dad, but sometimes my dad was a little inappropriate in the shower with me. And I still love him for that. Until we can be honest and strip away our titles, strip away how people view us, strip away our shame, our pride, our embarrassment. Y'all, because black folks, we some prideful people. We can be broke, but we want to look good and you're not going to know it, right? So until we can get rid of the exterior and allow God to really deal with the heart of our matter, the souls of our matter, and strip away what we feel defines us as a people, our children will forever suffer.
So let me ask you all to do this. Watch this next video.
Speaking with R. Kelly accuser Lisa Van Allen.
We didn't expect it to be this powerful.
This
You know,
impactful.
like, because, you know, I came out in 2008 and nobody heard me.
Yeah.
So, it's awesome.
Yeah.
To be heard.
R. Kelly has denied the allegations and has threatened to sue Lifetime over the series. Lisa explained why it was so important for her to share her story.
There was a me before me too.
Right.
Because in 2008 there weren't any movements.
That's right.
You know, nobody else was talking about it.
Yeah.
So, and I came out, you know, hoping that I could help the victims.
I'm just so sorry. It was. Sorry I didn't get it sooner.
Yeah.
I'm not going to cry.
Tamara, let me ask you, Tamara, let me ask you if you believe the allegations against R. Kelly are true. What do you think?
I do believe they are true.
They're true. How does it make you feel, though, when you see this kind of behavior impacting African American girls and society is ignoring them?
I feel like it's like
blatant disrespect because as society, they tell young girls because of their appearance, they're going to be tried to be talked to by someone older. And versus trying to get on the older men, they get on the girls and they call them fast. And they say that, oh, you can't wear this, you can't do that, or and that. They're always taught to listen to the adult and do what the adult tells them to do. So when he comes around and they do what he has to do, it's blamed in them. And I feel like as African American girls, they don't get the same shining light as if they were someone who was not of black color. If it was even one person in the series said, if it was not an African American girl, maybe like a Caucasian girl, it would be a whole different outcome.
Wow. Lauren, let me ask you something, Lauren. Let me thank you too for being brave. We really applaud you. It takes a lot of courage to do what you did today. I had no idea, and you agreed to serve and to share. And I just want you to know that we really praying for God to continue His healing in your life. I want to ask you a question, Lauren. How do you forgive what some considers to be unforgivable? What did you do?
Okay, so let me say this. When I was younger, it was the sexual abuse by a relative. I was when you 18, you think you're grown, but you're not grown. So that between 18 to 23, 24.
Well, you're just 19 now, right?
I'm 29, I wish. But I suffered from emotional abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, and mental abuse. So for me, I'm honest, I was a diehard R. Kelly fan. And when I watched the documentary, I saw what I went through with the abuse stages with the victims, and that's honestly what turned me. How did I forgive those people? You have to hold on, when you speak about the seed, you have to hold on to what was instilled in you. My parents, my siblings, they planted a seed a long time ago, and no matter what I endured or what I went through, times I would cry at night, I would hear my mom pray. I would hear, so I was like, I'm gonna get out of this. Eventually, I'm gonna get out of this. Eventually, because what happened was one hurt led me to another abuse that caused another hurt, that led me to another abuse that caused another. So when I finally got out, they speak on, in the documentary and when I went to therapy, when people go through this, they make 7 to 10 attempts to get out of the situation. So for me, it's like 4 or 5 different stages of abuse that I went through, 7 to 10 attempts to get out of it. So I had to, when I got out, I was still in denial because mentally it takes you through, like it takes you, you're not yourself. So I had to kind of admit to myself, like, okay, I need help first off. I need help. I can't do this alone. I can't do this by myself. I need help. And my family is we're strong. But a lot of times in the black family, you're taught what happens in the house stays in the house. You have to let go of that mindset, or you will never be healed. You will never be free. So like an onion, I had to take back layers, peel back layers, and okay, this was the root of this, and I forgive that person. I made a decision that if Christ could die on the cross, if he could give his life for me, and they say no one sin is bigger than the other. The lies I've told, the things I've done, that's no bigger or worse than what will happen to me. So he could die for me. He died for them. So I have to forgive them because at the end of the day, I can't say that I'm a Christian. I can't say that I'm saved. it tear you down. And so you start second guessing yourself, you start second guessing how you feel, you start second guessing what you were taught. And it makes you it kills you on the inside before anything else can happen to you. It kills you. I was pregnant with my daughter, and before I was pregnant with my daughter, and because mentally I wasn't okay. I remember being picked up. I was pregnant. He picked me up. He shook me. It just dropped on the floor. And
we got you.
you gotta.
I need you all to pray for me. Yeah.
So what you have to do is you have to admit that, okay, this isn't right. I want to get out, and you fight to get out. And people don't realize, some people don't even realize they're in it yet. When you realize that you're there, you realize you're in that space, you do a checklist to go through who you were and what your normal behaviors were. And once you see that your normal behaviors didn't change, you might not get out right away, I'm gonna be honest. But you fight and you stay out. You fight and you stay at it till you get out. Some people, when they get out, they go back. You're not wrong when you go back. Don't let, like how people talk about these girls, don't let people's opinions about, oh, you know better. Oh, you were raised different. I was raised in church. I'm a church girl at heart. I know right from wrong. My abusers capitalized, different ones, capitalized on different circumstances that they know I went through, and they identify with me because everybody who abused me had been abused. So it was, oh, this happened to me. And they get you to open up and you discuss what's happened to you, and you create a bond. You create a bond to abuse, and it sounds mentally off, but it happens. I get it. You create a bond to abuse, and that person starts to manipulate you through that. Because you go to them as a safety net. You go to them as familiar territory. So you're not wrong when you go back. Just fight to get back out.
Come on, you all help me praise God for Minister Nelson, in 90 seconds, I want you to tell us, man, what should we do with R. Kelly? What should happen next?
So I think there are three things that should happen. One, he should stand trial for his criminal actions. Because being a believer doesn't exempt you from the laws of this land. Secondly, he should sit down with some real therapists who really are ready to do the hard work. And then thirdly, there need to be some men who come together and say, not another guy. We're not going to have another generation, because those seeds have been planted all around. Right. But until men, Pastor, you brought it up. Pharaoh went after male boys. Right. Herod went after boys, because if we can get men to go sideways, then our daughters and our wives and our sisters are uncovered. Right. So we have to say, bruh, we're not going to put up with this from you. You're going to stay on track. And where we see seeds popping up in others, we go and we dig it out.
So what we're going to do, y'all? We're going to break this cycle. We're going to break this cycle.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yes. All eyes on me. We're going to break the cycle.
Thank you, Jesus.
I just need some persons who believe that we touch and agree.
Thank you,
we can break the cycle.
Amen.
I do want you all to send us your comments. I want you to in fact, hashtag our conversation. The social slide will be on the screen momentarily. I want you to weigh in and know that this conversation continues. Hashtag Convo continues, if you will. In addition to that, I need you to know this, that on this coming Friday, we're going to continue this conversation at our second location. We got another location. We're talking about the location of that. Make sure you have the address. But we do want you all to help us to continue this conversation because it's a much needed conversation.
Amen.
That our churches need to lead.
Yes.
Need to lead. I do need you all to know that Lauren brought up a very important piece. It's not just sexual abuse. Any kind of abuse.
Right.
Physical, mental, psychological, we don't care what it is. Abuse is abuse, and we need to break the cycle. Would you all help me thank God for these persons? I watched the lady come up these steps. I know y'all weren't looking. Y'all missed her. She moved too fast for you. Minister for me softly. Be seated if you can.